Hello and welcome to Zeitgeist Banana, the podcast all about the English language. My name's Gideon, I'm in Paris, and I'm joined by John, who's in London. Hello, John.
Hi, Gideon. How are things?
Yeah, pretty good. Actually, I'd like to come and see you in London, but I can't at the moment because of quarantine. I have to be 2 weeks quarantine, so we have to do this across the ocean.
Across the channel. Yes,
Across
indeed.
the channel.
I know we've never done that before, though, have we? So, normally we're face to face.
Yeah, I'm a bit sarcastic there.
Yes, sure.
Well, I really want to visit London, but I can't right now.
Yeah, no. Well, I would love you to come too and share a coffee together, and then we could talk about how we're going to, order coffee with our new phrases that we spoke about in the other episode. So
Yes, you remember we can ask for a little brown. Can I have a little brown, please, or a big brown?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. If you haven't heard that one, listeners, listen to our podcast about coffee and the English language. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, no, it was a good one, that one. I like that one.
Yeah. So, John, in our last podcast, it was about tea. And I got some feedback about that because I made one sweeping generalization that in all the languages in the world, there are only two words for tea, either tea or chai, or kind of something similar to that. But, of course, I got a comment that said, no, that's not true. This is from Loboko P69, who said, no, in Poland, we say herbata. You know that, yeah. So in Polish, it's called herbata if you want to order tea.
Wow. But does that mean that only in Poland they call it something different? Or
I don't want to say because someone else is going to write in, but all the research I did, it was every language was tea or chai. But that's an exception.
I wonder why it has that name though in Polish. There must be some kind of connection there.
Ask a Polish person.
Okay, I will do. Yeah. Curious.
Right. So we've done coffee. We've done tea. Do you know what this podcast is going to be about?
Coca-Cola?
No, actually, it's about British food and the English language. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
English language.
That's going to be interesting. I mean, I would say personally, I don't know about what you would say, Gideon, but I think there's a common misconception that English food is not very good.
A misconception, yeah.
Yeah.
It is true. I think certainly the last 20 years or so is also vastly improved if you in London or in UK.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it? And I always kind of recommend that students, because it's a bit of a stereotype, isn't it, as well? People come out with it as a bit of a stereotype, I think. But I always kind of suggest to go to a gastropub because I guess we don't really have English restaurants, do we? It's more kind of a pub, so a gastronomic pub, isn't it? That's good to go to. I always recommend that. I think that's a good plan.
I do agree. And also this reputation is quite recent because in the 19th century, English food was considered one of the great cuisines, strangely enough, if you read stories of the day. But I think after the war, lots of sort of instant recipes became popular, and food took a downturn. Yeah, that's how we got our reputation. But I think now it's, as you say, it's not the case. And if you go to these gastropubs and places like that, you can get some really great food. And I should say, yes, we're going to talk about some English foods, or I should say British foods. Don't forget Scotland and Wales. And also the history of some of these foods. Quite interesting, really interesting stories. And also the English language connection, some of the words related to this. And what I'm going to start with are food idioms. Okay, before we delve into the English cuisine, I'll talk about food idioms. Do you know any food idioms, John?
I know the one that we spoke about last time. It's not my cup of tea, but I guess it's not really food, is it? So
okay, well, I'll start off, and then you could. So I've done a lot of research today, so I've got a list in front of me, so it makes it a little bit easier. Because you didn't know what we were going to talk about today, did you?
I didn't know. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Can I actually? I've actually just thought of one.
Go ahead.
Bread and butter.
Yeah. bread and butter is my bread and butter. In what context would you use it? Except literally bread and butter.
Sorry. Yeah, I would use it in a context as in it's something that is essential in terms of your income, I would say. So my bread and butter at my mechanic workshop is changing people's tires and MOTs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you're an English teacher, that's bread and butter is explaining the difference between the present perfect and the past simple, maybe. That's how we make half our income.
Yes, that's true. That is definitely our bread and butter. Our bread and butter is not the podcast.
No, not at all. Also, by the way, you bring up an interesting point about collocations, because people don't say butter and bread, do they?
No, they don't. They would always say bread and butter. That's very true.
So if a student said to you, I like butter and bread, would you correct them? Because it's perfectly correct. It makes sense, grammatically correct. So would you correct them or not?
Well, if they like butter and bread, then of course. I mean, if they're not using it as an idiom, then that's fine, isn't it?
Or could you pass me the pepper and salt? Is that correct or incorrect?
It's a curious one, isn't it? I guess it doesn't sound right to a native speaker, does it? But it's not wrong to say it, is it? I guess we're just, as you say, it's a collocation, isn't it? So, yeah. I mean, it's not wrong, is it?
No, I think that's just one of the difficult things as an English teacher, when to correct and not correct. Something's really clear. No, that's wrong. It's not correct. That's not what we say. But with collocations, well, why not pepper and salt? Maybe I should tell them most people say salt and pepper, but okay, or bread and butter.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably better in a way to correct people, isn't it? Because you're kind of saying that, because if you're familiar in terms of hearing it, then for some reason, if somebody said pepper and salt, you'd kind of almost be like, oh, what did you say?
Yeah.
Because you're not used to hearing it in that way.
Yeah. Okay, John, let's move on to British foods. And one of the comments I got from the last podcast about tea was from Cow Silvestrini, who said, hey, why don't you talk about Marmite? Okay, well, I'm not talking about just Marmite. We're talking about British foods, but that's a very good question, because Marmite, in fact, has a very interesting history too. Do you like Marmite?
No, I hate Marmite.
Oh, you're kidding.
Do you like it?
Yes, one of the yes.
I knew that was the case.
Why?
If I was gonna bet on anybody that liked Marmite, it was going to be you. Okay. So yeah, I'm afraid we might have to stop doing the podcast from now on.
But you may change your mind when you know the history of Marmite.
Okay, enlighten me.
Do you know what it's made of, Marmite?
Yeast extract.
Very good. Yes. And do you know where it comes from?
A factory.
It comes from Burton-upon-Trent, where they make beer. So basically, Marmite is the crap left over from making beer. Did you know that?
I didn't, but I probably could have guessed it. It doesn't surprise me.
And the guy came along, brilliant guy, said, hey, can I take that crap? Yeah, go ahead. We don't want it. And from that, I think, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And he produced Marmite. Yeah.
Okay. So
and he became a millionaire from crap.
So you like eating crap, is what you're saying?
No, I like it's yeast extract, though. It is yeast extract. That's really good for you, by the way.
Is it? Okay.
As umami gives flavor to other things. Yeah.
Okay.
So savory taste.
Although, having said that, I mean, maybe I would like it if I tried it again, because apparently, I don't know if this is an urban myth, but apparently your taste buds change every 7 years.
Is that right?
Supposedly. I'm sure you're going to look it up and disprove me on this. And then also, apparently, if you eat something 15 times on average, you will like it.
Is that right?
Supposedly, yeah, because your taste buds change.
What if I eat a chair 15 times?
Then you'd be quite large. Yeah, I don't know. Perhaps you'd ruin your teeth.
Yeah. Okay. Have you heard of Britalian cuisine?
Oh, well, I haven't heard that expression, no. but I'm guessing it's a cross between British and Italian.
Yeah, that's right. It's become a thing, I think.
Has it?
Apparently, yes. You use pasta and Marmite and Parmesan and I don't know. You mix it all together. It's called Britalian.
Oh my God. Yeah. Any Italian listening to this and hearing you put Marmite and pasta together would be horrified.
All right, we'll move on from Marmite. Oh, I was going to finish off the idioms. I had a few more idioms for you. Okay.
I've thought of some in the meantime.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hot potato.
Yeah, it's a hot potato.
That,
this hot potato's left me with egg on my face.
Oh, yes.
Nice mixed metaphor.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And you're full of beans in the morning.
Full of beans, yeah. Full of beans, which means full of energy, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And then hot potato would be a controversial or difficult subject, isn't it?
Yeah. And egg on your face means you're embarrassed.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why I mixed the metaphor, yeah. I've also got a piece of cake.
Piece of cake, yeah. Something very easy.
Mm-hmm. Couch potato, describing you. I thought of you.
What? Yeah, well, occasionally I sit on my couch and eat cookies.
Okay. So a couch potato is a lazy person who spends all time watching, I don't know, TV or videos on the couch, eating cookies and chips and pizza and drinking beer.
Yeah, that's me every day.
A smart cookie, that's also you, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm couch potato, smart cookie, I've got everything.
Yeah, smart cookie just means an intelligent person, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure on the basis of your previous podcast that would be true, but yeah.
In a pickle.
In a pickle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
Which means in a difficult situation, doesn't it?
Yes.
I've had my passport stolen, and I'm in, I'm in Rome, and I don't have any money, and my credit cards, and I don't know anyone. I'm in a real pickle. Can you help out? Pickle. It comes from Dutch. That one. Pickle.
Does it? Wow. Okay.
The big cheese.
The big cheese. Yeah. I did look this up the other day, and I can't remember the origins of it, but I think it's quite a curious origin. Do you know the origins?
I don't know the origin, actually.
I can't remember. It just
means like the boss, doesn't it? Or the most important person around. Don't ask me that question. Ask the big cheese.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got a couple more. Not a sausage.
So it could be literal, but it's not normally literal, is it? There's not a sausage, meaning there's nothing at all.
Exactly, nothing at all. Do you know where it comes from?
Yorkshire?
It comes from Cockney.
Oh,
sausage and mash, cash, because it originally meant no money. Have you got any money? No, not a sausage. Sausage and mash, cash. I haven't got any cash. So that's the origin.
Of course it does. Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense now.
So there's also selling like hot cakes. You know what that means, John?
Yeah, so that's when things sell very quickly because everybody wants them.
Exactly. And actually the origin is quite interesting. It comes from America, the US. And you say hot cakes? Why hot cakes? Cakes are usually cold. When in fact the cakes they're talking about are actually pancakes, which were sold at the side of the road and in fairs and exhibitions. And they sold very well. They were cheap. And in large quantities. So that's the origin, selling out hot cakes.
That's curious, isn't it? Yeah, I like that one.
Right, we're going to move on to some English food. So I'm going to do this in kind of a quiz way. I'm going to ask you what it is. You can explain to our dear listeners what it is, if you know, and maybe the ingredients. And if you know the origin, it's more difficult. You can talk about that. I'm going to start with fish and chips. What are the main ingredients? By the way, we don't say chips and fish. That's another collocation, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we don't. Sometimes I say chish and fips, but that's just
okay.
So you wanted me to tell you what
are the main ingredients of fish and chips?
Fish and potato.
Brilliant.
Wow, this is an easy quiz, isn't it?
It's an easier quiz than last time.
Yeah. So I didn't really have to use my noodle on that occasion, did I?
No, very good. Use my noodle. Use my brain. So, do you know the origin?
I did read somewhere of the actual food or the name of the food.
No, the actual where does it come from originally?
Right. Well, I think it came from, this may be wrong, but there was two theories. I think it either came from an Italian immigrant or it came from a Jewish immigrant?
The one I know is the Jewish immigrants. They have the habit of frying fish in batter, and somewhere along the line, I don't know the Italian immigrant story. Maybe there's some truth in that, but the one I heard, somewhere along the line, the chips got added. The first fish and chips shop in the UK, although this is disputed, it was in Bethnal Green in London, opened by a Jewish immigrant called Joseph Malin. Check that. Yeah, not mushy peas. That's definitely a northern thing.
It's a northern thing, yeah. So do you know why people in the north have adopted it as their own?
Well, it's not only the north, is it?
Well, no, but it's kind of, I mean, I would argue, I mean, fish and chips is generally a lot better in the north, in Yorkshire and places like that.
Possibly. I think also that the oil they use is different, isn't it? I know because I went to university in Leeds and they use like beef dripping to cook. I'm vegetarian, so don't want the chips and beef dripping. But in London, it's vegetable oil, isn't it? The cook.
I guess
maybe the taste is different. Maybe the taste is different.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not really sure why it's so much better, but potentially it usually is. My local fish and chip shop's very good though. So, and I'm in London, so.
You grew up in Birmingham, didn't you?
Yes, near Birmingham, village between Birmingham and Coventry. Yeah.
And are there any local specialities there?
To be honest, Birmingham is known for the Balti, which is a variation on curry. It's kind of it's an interesting history, really, because apparently it was invented in the 70s by migrants, I think. Well, I'm pretty sure it was India and Bangladesh, or possibly Bangladesh. And basically, it was an alteration of the curry. So it's kind of a bit creamier, a bit milder in flavor.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay. And it's interesting you talk about curry because people think it's a recent thing, but let me tell you, it's not. Did you know that?
I didn't know.
So the first recipe for chicken curry, 1758, cookbook in 1758 in England. Wow. Also, piccalilli, which I'm sure you see in the supermarket, the condiment, also 1758. And kedgeree. Do you know kedgeree?
Yeah, that's it's like kind of fish chowder. Is that right? No.
It's like a breakfast food, and it's a mix of like fish and curry, and eggs, a bit of curry powder. That's also from the late 18th century. So yeah, we've had this connection with India for a long time because of the colonization, which you won't go into today.
Indeed.
Mulligatawny soup, which you don't see very much these days, but that's also from the 18th century.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of that soup, but it sounds nice.
Also, the national dish, some people say fish and chips, but some people say chicken tikka masala, don't they?
Do they indeed?
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I suppose it's probably just as popular, if not more popular, isn't it?
Yeah. Where was that invented?
Bradford.
Well, you could close. It's disputed, but Glasgow, a restaurant in Glasgow, claims that it invented in the 1970s when an Indian restaurant in Glasgow, when the customer came in and complained that the food was too dry, so they made this sort of creamy sauce, and that's where it comes from. It's not an Indian, it's not from India, and now it's exported to India, but it's actually from Britain or from Scotland.
No, well, that's interesting, isn't it? So, I mean, Bradford wasn't actually a silly guess, though, really, was it? Because I mean, it does have a large Asian population, so it's quite likely, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, I'm going to ask you one or two more English foods. Tell me what you think they are. Bubble and squeak.
Ooh, bubble and squeak. Yeah, my mum always used to make bubble and squeak. So, bubble and squeak is normally kind of the leftovers from a roast. So, for example, you'd have things like bits of potato and bits of cabbage and onion and things like that, all kind of mixed together. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. It's leftover food, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Chip butty.
Chip butty. God, I haven't had one of those for years. It's one of the best British foods, right?
Not very sophisticated.
Not really, no.
You might want to explain what it is.
So chip butty is just putting chips inside 2 slices of bread, maybe some ketchup, and then eating it. So
Yeah,
sometimes
student food.
it's definitely student food, or you could have fish finger butty as well, can't you?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well,
It's another.
butty is just another word for sandwich in the north of England, isn't it?
I guess so, yeah. But I always picture a butty being on white bread with butter. It has to be, really, doesn't it?
But in London, we don't say butty, do we?
Well, I don't know. I'm not from
Butte,
London.
I remember. No, no. When I studied in Leeds, everyone said, "Love a cheese butter and a chip butter."
Is that
terrible accent? I know.
Is that your accent?
No one would say that in London.
Dear. My mother would be appalled at your accent.
Yeah,
being
I don't know
from
in your part
Yorkshire.
of the world though. Do they say butty or sandwich?
I'm trying to remember actually. I mean, sometimes, yeah, people say cob. I'm pretty sure people
Oh,
say
okay,
cob.
okay.
Or bap. I think people say bap
Oh,
as well.
right.
I think it depends where you are. I might be wrong about the cob thing, but definitely bap. People say bap. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll have a bacon bap.
Right, so that's how the country's divided as well. How we refer to our sandwich. Do you know the origin of sandwich itself?
From the Earl of Sandwich in Kent, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. The legend has it he was at the gaming table, and he was too busy gambling to leave, so he asked his servant to bring him some meat between 2 pieces of bread. Earl of Sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just a couple more. Black pudding. What's that?
Black pudding, as far as I know, is dried pig's blood. Is that right?
Yes, I can't think of anything more vile personally.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I actually quite like it. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you're a vegetarian, so maybe that's a really disgusting thing for you. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't ordinarily order it, but I think it's quite tasty.
And yeah, it forms part of the English breakfast, doesn't it?
I guess it does traditionally, doesn't it? It's very rare, though, to find people serving it nowadays, I would say.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
I would say so. I mean, I don't normally go out for an English breakfast too often, but I would say, yes, it's probably relatively rare.
I think tourists love English breakfast. That's one of the things they like about coming to England, having the English breakfast, in my experience. Oh, yes, we have a fantastic English breakfast this place.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know, though, because I think a lot of people find it quite heavy, don't they? And there's always a bit of a myth about the idea of us actually eating it for breakfast, because in my experience, it's very rare really to eat it for breakfast unless you go to a hotel, maybe, as it's a bit of a treat. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's something we would maybe have as a brunch rather than for breakfast, isn't it? I guess people like builders, you would say, may have it for breakfast to give them energy for the day. Or I always think lorry drivers as well, they kind of have it, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a lot of food and it's cheap. So yeah, it's sort of working class thing and gives you a lot of energy. Yeah. And yeah, I agree with you. Not usually eaten at breakfast except for a few exceptions.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, when I think of English breakfast, I think of another idiom, the full Monty.
The full Monty, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me the full Monty, which means everything on the English breakfast, the bacon, the sausages, the eggs, the black pudding. That's the full Monty, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But alternatively as well, maybe the waiter just strips off all his clothes. I mean, you got to be a bit careful with that one.
Well, that's more recent, because when the film came out, the film Monty, I thought, why are they making a film about the English breakfast?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. What about haggis?
I don't think I've ever actually had haggis, but I think haggis is the innards of a sheep. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. with lots of, what do they put with it? Oats or something, and they cook it in the sheep's stomach.
Yeah.
Something. I'm talking something I really don't know very much about, but something like that. You can Google it.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself, to be honest, but
We need a Scottish person.
Yeah, we do. We need to get somebody on the show.
Actually, I asked my students. I did a bit of research. I did a survey for this podcast, believe it or not, and I asked my students to name some English foods, and one that came up regularly was Christmas pudding.
That's interesting.
You like that?
I do like Christmas pudding, but only if it's with brandy butter. And I like it when it's flambéed.
Oh, okay, flambéed. Is it the only thing you like flambéed?
It's the only thing actually that my family would flambe.
So I've got one more question about food, and that is, John, you live in London. I'm from London. Mm-hmm. Do you know any London foods?
I do. Jellied eels.
Jellied eels, yeah. I can't think of anything more disgusting than jellied eels. Do you eat them?
Yeah, every morning.
Is that right?
Well, in fact,
with
no,
your
I've
little
never
brown.
Indeed, with my little brown. No, I've never had them. In fact, I think there's in the East End of London, would it be where you'd find a jellied eel shop, along with pie and mash shops, wouldn't you?
Pie and mash.
Pie
That's
and
the
mash
other thing I was going to say. The other London food, pie and mash. Yeah,
but
East End of London. Yeah.
They've become kind of tourist attractions now, I think, because they're kind of very traditional places, aren't they? And I think they kind of turn up on the radar of many tourists in Lonely Planet and the likes, I think.
Exactly. Although I think they're having a tough time because there was a very famous pie and mash shop in, what's that market in Islington called? I can't remember. Just opposite Angel Station, Chapel Market, and it closed down recently.
Oh, really? That's a shame.
So, yeah. So, and there was Tubby Isaac's. That's the famous jellied eel place in the East End. Or but I'm not sure if that's still around. Let's check that.
So another victim of the coronavirus, by the sounds of it.
Possibly. Well, I've just got one more thing, and it's not about English food. It is a word. Cheese.
Okay.
Where does the word cheese come from?
No idea.
Actually, I'm only mentioning cheese because the word itself is quite interesting. It actually comes from Roman times. Because it is from Latin, because most of the Latin words we get in English now either came in the 17th, 18th century, or they come via French, after the Norman conquest. And there were very few English words that actually come from Roman times, but the word cheese does. It's a very old word. And you can tell it's from Roman, even if you go to in Spanish it's queso, and in Portuguese it's queso. So yeah, it comes from Latin. But the French say fromage, don't they? And Italians formaggi, is it?
Formaggio, yeah.
Formaggio. Yeah. But we don't get it from French, because usually a lot of our food words we get from French. This comes from Latin, from the Romans.
Wow, okay. That's an interesting one. So,
okay, John, surprisingly, you did very well there. You're quite clever.
I know what I love food, so yeah.
Because you did so well, there's a little prize for you.
Excellent.
And that is you can plug your podcast on this podcast. Go ahead, do your thing.
But yes, if you do want to listen to something that's very focused on the English language, then yeah, English with Monty.
Okay, and I also remind you to watch our YouTube videos on Let Them Talk TV.
No, I was just going to say, I actually watched one of your episodes the other day, and I thought your performance really reminded me of Matt Damon, actually.
Okay, yeah, it's good you bring up Matt Damon. We haven't talked about him yet. But anyway, yeah, so I thought you were more like Matt Damon, but you can, there's definitely, if you like Matt Damon, then watch Let Them Talk TV on YouTube. Yeah.
For Gideon's chiseled good looks, very similar to Matt Damon.
Yeah. Thank you. Cool. Okay, well, let's wrap up, John. Take it easy. Stay healthy.
Yes, you too.
And everyone out there, see you soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.